If a piece is good, if it's great, it has to come from a place of utter personal creative conviction. That's the only way it's going to be good. That's the only way it's going to be great.
Why is it important for a filmmaker to determine a story's commercial viability?
Well, you want to be able to find a path to get your material made, and like it or not, even at the lowest budget, filmmaking is an expensive art form. You know, it often takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of dollars to make a movie. And there's going to be someone in that equation that's going to want to know, if I put in X amount of money, is there any possibility I'm going to see any of it back? You know, I mean, it's ultimately, unless they're purely philanthropic in funding a film, it's a business endeavor. It's a return on investment at some point. The problematic thing about writing to be commercial is that that's always shifting. And, you know, we were talking about superheroes a little bit earlier. You know, you write like a spec superhero piece now. I was just seeing an article in one of the trades earlier this week that was saying that, you know, the recent box office has started to show that the superhero model is slipping financially. It's very expensive to make them. The box office return is not quite as justifying of those scale of movies at the moment. So again, no shade on superhero movies. I don't want to suggest I don't like them. I do. But the commerciality for a writer to go into doing their work is important to consider. I think it would be irresponsible to say otherwise. It is important to consider, and that doesn't mean trying to be in any way, you know, paint by numbers of the last movie of your genre that did really well, like, you know, Weapons is doing great. All right, I'm going to do something that's just like Weapons with a twist. By the time that gets to the marketplace and people are considering shooting it and backing it, and it gets edited and it's out in distribution, who knows what the marketplace demand and audience interest is going to be. I mean, it's so fickle, and it changes year to year, if not, you know, every quarter. What people are watching, what's hitting, what's connecting is shifting. So being commercially mindful is valuable, you know, but I don't think being commercially, you know, not binding yourself with a sense that you can, you know what the commercial appetite for your material is going to be by the time it gets in front of those decision makers. You don't know. I think, you know, being true to certain expectations in your genre is wise. That is something that I should tell myself more often, because I often like to color a bit outside of the lines and blend genres and take a bit of this and a bit of that, and you know, sort of let those harsh lines bleed a bit. But look, there's something to be said about being mindful of what is doing well commercially, and, you know, if you're going to make a silent claymation 3-hour movie, there's maybe a risk in the commercial appetite for something like that. Although I wish claymation would come back. I think claymation is fascinating.
Me too. Well, to that, you had done an excellent podcast from, I think it was From the Heart Productions.
Yeah.
I listened to that, and it was
thank you.
beautifully done. And you said, for the indie filmmaker hearing this, wondering if their story is, quote, too weird, too complicated, or too ambitious, I'd say go for it. Shouldn't we temper that, though? Shouldn't we be more geared toward the market? I mean, you take something like Anora, no one probably thought that was going to...
Look at that.
I mean, I've watched
Juggernaut.
it. It's a great film, but I'm just saying it's not a superhero film.
No, and it took a lot of risks.
Yeah.
On a lot of levels.
Yeah.
On a lot of levels, which we could
Right, that's another
digress
show.
about
Right.
Anora for a while. But I think what I was implying, and what I hope I put in context when I made that statement, is not a creative recklessness, but a creative conviction. Because I think if you're going to, if a piece is good, if it's great, it has to come from a place of utter personal creative conviction. That's the only way it's going to be good. That's the only way it's going to be great, and do something that other people are going to get it immersed and get engaged by. Because if you're doing a recipe and you're just playing by the rules and trying to do something that's been done a billion times already and probably been done better, and unfortunately you're going to be able to do it because it's already been done, then how can you have that much creative conviction in that? You're just sort of doing a rehash. So I think if the idea is pushing at you enough that you're inspired to tell that story and to tell it your way, there's a very good chance that, if you've got your technique and you've become, reasonably seasoned as a writer or a filmmaker, that you're going to execute on it in a compelling way because of that degree of conviction. And you think about, some of the more, let's say, out there movie concepts that have done extraordinarily well, even in the commercial and award space. Certainly in Nora, look at Everything Everywhere All at Once is on the surface, a pretty out there concept that did magnificently well. People really connected with. So you don't want to, I mean, even The Brutalist, which is a very, a difficult movie that did very well at the Oscars last year, but, an unconventional long narrative with a lot of creative risks taken, a very, very slow burn type of narrative, that it came from such a place of conviction and authenticity that it worked. And it worked for audiences, and it worked for critics, and it worked for the Academy. So, I think what I was trying to communicate in a statement like that is, if you are impelled by your idea to the point that it just has to be that way and has to come out of your nervous system in a certain way, then there's probably something valuable there. And if it's, you reading the trades every day and collating, box office data with streaming numbers, and you're looking at, crossed hatches of what's performing best this week in the marketplace, is that going to inform your creativity to do something interesting that's going to stick, a year, 2, 3 years down the road when that movie's out there? Probably not, unfortunately. So I think inspiration is definitely something that can't be bought. And if it's come to you by whatever mechanism, and you can harness it, and you can funnel it into a creative statement, that is one of the most special and unique things that can happen to an artist. And if you do it just to get it out of your bloodstream and then you move on to something else and it serves as a sample piece, that's valuable too, even if it doesn't get made. But inspiration is a serious force to reckon with, and if you have it, I think you should use it.
Right, you could even go back further in time and look at like the Taxi Driver or Blowout or something, and those probably weren't going to be, if you saw the log line, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a hit.
No, exactly. And those movies, are part of our accepted canon of great work now, and they were very risk-taking and very, in some ways, avant-garde for their time as commercial movies.
Right, I like that. So you said creative conviction, but not creative recklessness?
Right. I think that's a difference. There's a distinction there.
How does a filmmaker with limited experience determine commercial viability?
Well, we are both creators and we're consumers all at once, right? I mean, we watch content, we watch movies, we can pay attention to trends and waves of popularity of certain types of material in the marketplace. And, you know, even if you have limited experience in making content yourself, you as an audience and a participant in the greater media culture can certainly get a pretty clear idea of what's tracking, you know, what people are enjoying, what's doing well, and you know, maybe sift through whatever ideas you have sort of in your hopper and see, well, maybe this is the one I should pursue right now if this is so, you know, pertinent to what's being successful. You know, commercial success, like we had talked about, is very hard to map out because it changes, and certain things that you, like we discussed, that you would never really just expect do very well, and certain things that seem to be so like sure bets, they flop and disappear. You know, it's very it's a tricky fortune to tell because you just don't really know. So I don't think beyond just watching as much as you can that's obviously doing well and getting notice can help but inform you of your own decisions of what types of stories to pursue, or choosing amongst your ideas which you think is the best to pursue in a given moment or sort of stage of cultural interest that's going on out there.
Right, and some things, you know, found footage
Yeah.
had its time, and maybe it'll come back again.
Yeah, there's
but
a bit of it
yeah.
that's come back around again. It's inexpensive to produce it, and it has a very immediate, tactile, unnerving quality to it because it feels very real. And I mean, yeah, there was gosh, the Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch era of just one after the other. That's right. They were so popular. But there are some coming back. I think there's one out now that's gotten very good reviews. That's a found footage type of template.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.